for Politics and International Relations. It's great to see all of you here. My name is Sama Iran. You've all probably seen me in various capacities since the start of your studies. So I'm a senior lecturer in political economy and also the director of a project for our social sciences students in general, including politics and international relations. I am really happy to have on board with us today a panel of our kind of recent graduates over the past few years, all having had graduated from various politics and international relations courses. So politics, IR and development. Now, the format will be that we'll have our panelists introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what they studied and what they're doing right now. And then I'll be asking them some questions about their career journeys or journeys from Westminster on to what they're doing now. And then following that, we'll open it up for discussions and any questions you might have. It's a really useful time to be also asking questions in terms of, challenges perhaps that our alumni face when they were transitioning, how do they make the most out of their time at Westminster, and so on. A couple of housekeeping things. So the session is recorded, so bear that in mind, and we will share that recording in the future if anyone is interested. And the other one I have already done. There is also an option for you to submit your questions via that QR code. So if anyone wants to submit a question anonymously, you have the chance to do that as well. So I think let's start. We have Kiana, Juliana, Samira, and Zina here. Maybe we'll start by you guys introducing yourselves and kind of tell us about what you studied and what you're doing now, and then we get into the questions. Juliana, should we start?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Juliana. I studied international relations, graduated in 2021, Samira? Is that right? 2021? Crazy, okay. I am a former executive assistant for the Embassy of Brazil, and I worked specifically with the official representation of Brazil for international organizations in London. That's a mouthful. And I served the ambassador Brazil directly. It was a great job, and it is former because I'm now looking after my two babies. Just had my second child, so I'm on maternity leave. And yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I am Zina. I work for Zurich Insurance as our early careers talent advisor. So I recruit our graduates, apprentices, interns across the UK business. I started there as a graduate actually in our operations space, so I was project manager for 2 years. And I graduated from Westminster in 2020 in IR and development.
Hi everyone, I'm Samira. I studied politics and international relations, same as Juliana, so graduated in 2021. I am currently working for an NGO called the Title Aid Association as a business engagement manager, and we basically help mothers in resource poor settings, and we're trying to find maternal mortality. That's what I'm currently doing.
Hi, I'm Kian. I studied politics. I graduated in 2023, and then I went to do a master's in ethics of AI, and I'm now a legal associate at Richmond Chambers, which is an immigration practice based in Colorado.
All right. Okay, thank you guys. I can't believe that when you said graduating in like 2020. I thought we were in this room sitting through classes like last year. So time passes really quickly. All right, first question. And you can take turns, whoever, there is no order. So feel free to come on board when you want to. What did you do if you had to sort of identify a few items like during your time at Westminster that you think helped in your transition to what you did later on? And were there things that you wish you had done more of when you were there?
What did I do? So,
What did you do?
I did quite a few things. Okay, I'll start with, I used to be part of, I was project manager for DEN, Democratic Education Network, which Farhan actually still runs. So that was a big part of my university career, I think. We worked on loads of different projects. I worked with Zina and Juliana. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was really, really good. We had a lot of, I learned a lot of like leadership skills from that, because obviously when you get into your university or your classes, you don't really have extra, you don't really have a space where you can show your leadership skills, but, well, then was that for me. And I learned a lot of organisational skills. We were planning galas, we were doing workshops, we did a lot of so I think, so a lot of skills come from that. I also was the BAME officer in my final year of university, so I was representing Black minority ethnic students in the university, so I ran that campaign, I won the campaign, and then, yeah, I was working as that, and I also did work experience in my final year of university as well. I worked for the Embassy of Afghanistan as an external affairs assistant, which taught me a lot of transferable skills as well. So that was just a few things that I've done during university.
I was just going to say that my university experience was a little bit different. Since first year I had to work. I had no option but to work, and I know that's a reality for a lot of students as well, not often talked about enough. A lot of people think that we kind of just have all this free time, we can be here to do all these extracurricular activities. But if you do have that time, that's great, but the reality for a lot of students, especially mature students, is that we do have to work part-time alongside our studies, and that was a reality for me. So after all my lessons, all my lectures, I would run out of here, go straight into work. Sometimes I do readings on the tube and, wherever I could. So I really used my lessons and the time that I had scheduled to be here to my advantage. Like, I really took in the lessons, everything that I signed up that I could that was extracurricular. So I went to a UN trip in New York at my second year of level 5, which was amazing, and I'm really thankful for the experience. So I really enjoyed and valued my time while I was here, because I knew I had to work afterwards, and I wish I could have stayed for all the other extracurricular activities, which you do gain a lot from, but I know that's not the reality for a lot of students. So yeah, what I would say is, if you are in this position where you have to work after uni, use your time here really well, enjoy the lessons, and really pay attention, ask the questions, and try to participate in as many extracurricular activities as you can. Yeah, without pressure, but don't push yourself.
I think I forgot to mention, I also did an internship at IOM, which was arranged by the university after I graduated, and so that played a huge role. And so I'm sure you're aware, but Westminster has sort of institutional arrangement with IOM, which is the UN Migration Agency, and so they send interns around the world to different duty stations every year, and I was in the first or second cohort of that. And so I spent 9 months in Laos, in Southeast Asia, working for IOM as a policy and communications intern after graduating. I hadn't initially thought development was necessarily for me. That kind of grew over time when I was at Westminster. I studied politics, but I think a lot of the departments are quite interlinked, and whether you're studying politics or IR or development, you kind of get a certain lens which Westminster provides, and so I kind of grew into thinking that development might be a good route. And yeah, that was an incredible experience. I got to kind of sit in on government meetings with the kind of big wigs in the Lao government, and with UN officials and all that sort of stuff. I got to travel to Bangkok, and yeah, that was definitely an incredible experience that I couldn't have done without Westminster.
Yeah, I mean, mine is kind of similar to both yours. So I had 3 jobs while I was at uni, because again I had to work, but I was very involved in DEN. It was something I was very passionate about, something that I knew that we could do a lot of good from, and it's really helped me actually in my career. I started a lot on my CV and stuff, especially when I was applying for graduate jobs. And I think doing all of those different things, especially at Westminster, there was a lot of opportunity for you to get involved in extra things. So open days and stuff like that, we did a lot of I was a representative there, and a lot of different talks and stuff like that, talking to different kind of organisations and companies, and I think that that really helped me figuring out what I wanted to do, at least features, and kind of what my career would look like. What I would have done differently, obviously, because jobs didn't help, but I would have done an internship, I think, if I was thinking ahead at the time in uni. I think internships are really valuable. Even if it's not internships, work experience, insight days, things like that, they're really valuable to kind of learning and building an idea of what your future and career could look like. So I think that that's definitely something I would have done when I was at uni, or should have done at least.
Thanks, everyone. I think sort of one common feature is that probably, I mean, not everyone is the same, but I think on this panel, everyone was quite active. I remember teaching them, and they were always doing other things. And sometimes it's a challenge, because as you said, like, you're also working, you have assignments to submit, etc., classes to go through. So kind of carving out that space, I guess, to do a few other things alongside, or just goes a long way afterwards. I'll sort of use this chance to come back to what Kian was mentioning about this IOM UN internships. Marking your calendars, I'll send that out. The 6th of November, we have an information session about the UN internships. And from next year, actually, as second-year students, you'll be able to do them as a placement year abroad. So you'll be an intern with the UN for over 9 months, just over 9 months. And it's a paid position. Of course, you have to apply for it, but it's also open, of course, to our final year students, but also second-year students do it as a full year. Second question. So when you were graduating, or kind of leading up to your graduation, what were some of the worries that you had about, okay, what am I going to do next? How did you sort of navigate them? Because I think that's one of the biggest questions, right? You're coming towards the end of your studies, or even second year, thinking of, okay, am I going to do a master's? Am I going to get a job? Will I do an unpaid internship, etc.? What were your worries, and were they the same actual worries you ended up facing? Were those the issues, or there were other issues that you hadn't thought about?
Yeah, so I graduated in the thick of COVID, and so my biggest worry is obviously the job market was really hard to get into. Corporate careers were on a low because a lot of companies were making people redundant, or they were downsizing kind of their job opportunities that were going out. So I didn't actually end up getting my on-time graduate scheme until a year later. So technically I wasn't just competing with my year, I was also competing with Samira's year to get a job as well. So there was a lot of people obviously in the job market at that time that were going through the same problem. And I think I knew that. I think also coming out of university, I was you're on a high, you're doing really well, or you hope that you're doing really well, and you are in an area where you're very comfortable, you've been there for 3 years, you know you're doing something you're passionate about. And it doesn't always end up being like that when you go into corporate, which is where I ended up. I didn't expect that I was going to end up in an insurance company. No one, I don't think, dreams of going into insurance. But it was a big eye-opener for me, and I think that the worries I had when I joined corporate was very similar to, I think, the worries I had before, which was, am I going to fit in? Because corporate has a very standard view, or I had at least a very stereotypical view of what corporate can look like, and especially the insurance market. And I think coming from a place like Westminster where I felt so at home and I was so comfortable with the people around me, it was that kind of mindset that I think I was a bit nervous about. And I think I did have some issues kind of going into the corporate world and figuring out what is my place there. I think you navigate that and you build your community and kind of the people you know there. I think also my worry with employment opportunities is always, am I ever going to get a job? Like, am I ever going to get a job, and am I going to be interested in the job that you're going to get? The job market right now, as someone working in early careers, is so saturated. There are so little jobs right now in the market, but people are obviously applying more and more. So we're getting thousands of applications. I think I've been there, we understand, and it's, am I going to get that job that I want versus the job that I need to have, because that is just the next stage. I also debated doing a master's, but I think the reason I did do that was because I knew if I did a master's, it was because I was going to be doing something I was comfortable in. I was very comfortable in education, I was very comfortable at university, because I knew I was reasonably good at it, and I knew if I did a master's, that would be me staying in education because I was comfortable, so I pushed myself out into corporate. And whether I do a master's at some stage is a different story, but at that point, that was why I didn't go with it. So overall, I think, yeah, the employment at the time and going for jobs at that time was extremely hard, so that was kind of the main worry at that point.
Can I was going to add the perspective of someone who did decide to do a master's. I did my master's in diplomacy at SOAS. And I did it because I knew I wanted to work at the Embassy of Brazil ever since my second year of uni. And I would constantly be looking up on their website for job opportunities, anywhere I could enter, anywhere I could like put my foot through the door. And just the requirements of the job didn't fit what I was doing at the time, and I had to be realistic about that as well. And I think I put a lot of expectation when I got to third year and was applying to jobs, not just at the Brazilian embassy, but embassies in general, because you can do that as long as you speak the mother tongue of that embassy. Local workers, you don't necessarily have to be a native of that country. So, for example, in Brazil, there's people from Angola and Portugal who speak Portuguese and have got jobs as locals there. So you can do that if you want. But I knew I'm originally from Brazil. I forgot to say that, and that's why I chose the Brazilian embassy. So I knew I needed to do a master's to get to where I wanted to get, and it worked out. And I mean, I think it was a really valuable 1 year of doing the master's. I learned so much from it, and I really got into a deep dive of the world of diplomacy, which is exactly where I wanted to be. And I think this set my foundation. I studied international relations, and I've kind of got a broad aspect of what I could expect from a career in that field. But I think diving into the world of diplomacy really focused and helped me narrow exactly what I wanted to do and what I needed to do in order to get there. But yeah, the fears, it was the same. 2021 was still COVID times. Nobody knew what was going to happen, will we get jobs. The market is still very saturated, but I can say from someone who now no longer works at the Embassy in Brazil, we're entering this phase that you can also like create your own opportunities. So there is a real big expectation from us to like get into a career and climb a ladder, and like you need to do that as soon as you leave uni. Like I think we also need to take a step back and not pressure yourselves. And also there's so much opportunity now for you to make your own opportunities. Like you don't necessarily have to work for someone, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. You can start with freelance work and then kind of work your way into corporate if that's what you want. But there is no pressure to kind of have it all figured out as soon as you leave university. I think this is like the first stage of entering your career. So it's, yeah, you made it to the end of university, which is a big deal, but also there's so much more that you're going to learn from now on. And I was just saying this, like, I think I truly learned what it meant to work in the world of diplomacy when I actually got a job and like started working in that field. Because you have the content, you have the theories, but once you actually get your foot through the door, you're like, oh my god, this is revolutionary.
Yeah, I think one of my concerns before leaving university is probably just that IR and politics might limit me to only like policy roles or central government roles, which is not the case at all, by the way. You have to use your transferable skills. So what you've learned during your 3 years here is not just theory-based. You've learned how to communicate with people, you've learned advocacy skills, you have, I don't even have like a bunch of skills, basically, yeah, time management, organisational skills, like there's so much which you can transfer into something else and tap into your creative side as well. I don't think a lot of people realise that politics and IR is creative if you look at it from a different angle, and that's what I was suppressing a little bit. So when I left here, I was thinking, oh, I need to get into a policy role. After that, I'm going to climb the ladder, do the next thing, do the next thing, do the next thing. But I think putting that pressure on yourself can limit you a lot. So you're applying to jobs, but you're not getting exactly what you want. But that's not the point. You don't have to get exactly yet, and you're not going to get that on the first one. You might be lucky, and if you are, that's great. But with the job market at the moment, there's not very a likely possibility that you'll get the first thing that you apply to, or your dream job straight after graduating university. But you've got to work your way up. You've got to see, okay, if I apply to this job, where can that get me in the future? Or let me apply to this job and see if I do get it. If I even like the sector, do I like working in an embassy? Do I like working in local government? Because that's what I had to do. I had to work in higher education, realise maybe that's not for me. Then I worked in government, realised that's not for me. Then I worked in local government, and I was like, okay, I can see this is getting a bit closer to what I want to do. Then I started working for a charity in NGO work, and then I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to give back to my community. But I had themes of that in all of my job roles. So it was always the bits that I enjoyed, the parts that I enjoyed in all of my jobs were giving back to the community, communication, advocacy, and that's kind of the pattern that I saw, and then which led me to where I am now, working for this NGO. So yeah, you kind of have to take one step to then go further, and you'll realise what you actually want, but you're not going to realise that straight away when you get out of university. So just let you guys know that now. But like, if you do know, that is also great. But yeah, I think that was one of my biggest worries, that oh my God, I'm not going to find a job in policy straight away, or in that type of sector. But
what was I worried about? I guess when you're sort of looking online for advice about the top careers that you want to go into, whether it's law or corporate or whatever, a lot of the advice is like, you have to go to the best university, you have to have the best grades, you have to have all this on your CV. No one cares. No one cares. It's not relevant at all. What I've been asked about in my interviews is my work experience, is my volunteering, is stuff that I've done outside of uni. The name on your degree is completely irrelevant. And that was a bit of a worry for me at the time. I think I'm kind of because of where Westminster is, but it's just not something that you need to worry about. I think there are certain careers that are still quite elitist, but that is definitely changing. So yeah, I think that was the main thing that's kind of stressing me about leaving university, but it's not something we need to worry about at all.
Thanks, everyone. I think it was interesting, like what you guys are saying, that it's not so much about doing something really glamorous or something that, a degree from a university, which is really outstanding, etc. But it's more having done something and completing it. Yesterday, I took a few of my students to a leading think tank in London, just across from the Parliament, and they have a fellowship scheme. It's called the ODI. So the ODI fellowship scheme is really popular. It's very famous internationally. They hire 20 fellows every year. How many applications do they have? 3,000. So it's a lot of competition. Now, the students were asking sort of what are the key things that you want, because it's a long application process. And the person who runs the scheme said that actually you're not looking for anything fancy or out there, but we want to see in your degree or during your time as a student or as a graduate, you've completed the project. I mean, I was just listening to Samira, like you're part of then, you complete the project, you organize a conference. That during your time you've done some volunteering, that you had some role. So it doesn't have to be necessarily like a full-time job. So they don't look for experience necessarily, that's a bonus. But you could have those experiences within what you're doing sort of during the course of your studies. And this is to plug in the assignments that we offer you. Like skills building is also through that. You do presentations which sometimes are a pain in the neck, but you are actually developing that skill. You are writing a 2,000-word essay, but it's about, next time you'll be at a job, you'll be probably asked, like, write this brief by next week, and you have to deliver it to the head of the department. So, in a way, look at these as some skills that you are gaining throughout the course of your studies. How did you get the job? So what was the hiring process? That's kind of one of the things that we wonder about. Sometimes you have to go through a lot of processes, interviews, written exams, etc. How was the hiring process for you guys in your different careers? Go on, Kiana.
I applied online. It was the first job I applied for. I have no idea how it happened. I applied for like 15 jobs, and it was the first one I had applied from. But it was the only interview that I got from all those 15 jobs, and I got a job. So I don't think that's indicative of what will happen. So please don't set your expectations to that level. And so I don't know whether I've got particularly helpful advice for that, because I know the job search can be grueling. There are lots of job boards that I used while I was at uni and since. Work for MP is one that's really good. Any sort of work for MP, researcher role, parliamentary roles, they're all posted on there. While I'm legal aid lawyers is really useful. That's where I found mine. LinkedIn, normal sort of job boards can be useful, but generally quite oversaturated, and don't use the immediate apply feature because no one reads it. And yeah, I guess like it's sort of about narrative as well. So how I was saying about having done something was really important, but also the way you craft your profile to a potential employer. Like, where have you come from, where are you going, how do all these experiences that you've had link together into this sort of package that you're presenting to them? And it can feel quite cynical, like you're kind of turning yourself into a product, but you are, basically, and just kind of playing into that and knowing that you have to play the game to an extent is really useful. And so for my current role, I work for an immigration barristers, and so it's kind of easy to kind of link the different things that I've done together, working for the migration agency, the UN, also working, volunteering for a legal aid clinic. It's quite easy to put those together and to say where I'm going and what my profile is. But if you generally have lots of varied experience, if you can sort of make it seem relevant, if you can try and make yourself kind of seem like a unique proposition for them, I think that's really useful.
Yeah, we're
So my current role wasn't as typical as well, so I don't know how helpful that's going to be, but I worked for the charity for about 3 to 4 years, and this was just voluntary. So during university, during my other careers, just because I was really, really passionate about it and it's something that I wanted to do. And then I never thought that there would be like this full-time paid opportunity that would be coming my way. I planned a gala, which we have every single year, and the kind of rotation of that gala, why I was approached by the director of the charity, who offered me this role. They were impressed with, obviously, how everything went, and they wanted me to basically be part of the team. I did go through an interview afterwards with the rest of the trustees and other directors. So we had, that was like your normal step interview, it was more of an informal conversation, which sometimes you might find that is the case, and they will tell you, look, this is just like an informal conversation, and that's because at that time they had already kind of made their decision up that, yeah, they want you to be on board with them. And then I just went through normal checks. So, yeah, I don't know if that's helpful, but that is another way that, you know, it could happen for any of you. If you, for example, you're like doing internships or you're volunteering, you've done something really amazing, someone sees that from a high position, they could, you know, offer you something. And I would say take that opportunity and take every opportunity that comes your way. But if it's something that you are, because I was a little bit unsure about the position at first, but now that I'm like, you know, now that I'm doing it, I love it. So I would definitely say, even if you're a little bit unsure, obviously ask questions, ask the right questions, but do take a bit of a risk. I think it is all about taking risks, and in every role that I've been in, I haven't always taken a risk. So yeah, I think that's how my interview process was.
Yeah, I mean, again, my current role, the process is a bit unique. So getting into Zurich, I went through a standard graduate scheme. I was applying to roles all day. I had an Excel spreadsheet with highlighted of what stages I was at with each company, and it was very much, I did an application, I had to do a video interview, I had to do a psychometric test, and then I got my interview and I had to do a case study presentation with my company at the time. The process has changed slightly, but that's what I had to do. And then during obviously my time, I was with them for 2 years, and then I actually did a careers fair with them to represent our kind of company and what I was doing. And at the time, a secondment opportunity came up, so I was offered the opportunity to cover someone's maternity leave in our early careers recruitment team. And I had an interview, but I think what my journey has shown is that you can move sideways in companies, and it's not always about the trajectory upwards, and it's about figuring out what you want to do. And you can move in a linear manner, and I think that is something that I would encourage when you get into a company, even if it's not always about what's the next stage up and the next promotion. It's about what do I want to do, what's my place in this company, and then moving sideways to figure that out. So my journey has been a bit different, because once I did that secondment, they actually offered me the permanent position with them. It was also to cover someone's mat leave, but also to stay permanently, and then obviously from that a lot has come about it. So I'm creating a new program, I'm working with them to figure out what kind of our future can look like as a company. So yeah, it's thinking kind of creatively about what you can do with your career.
Hi. I was in the last semester of my master's degree when I thought to myself, right, I better start looking for jobs, and start applying. like I said, I always knew I wanted to work at the Brazilian embassy in some form, capacity, whatever. But the opportunity just wasn't coming up, and it did come up. The job for executive assistant came up about 3 months before I was due to graduate. I thought, should I apply? You know, what if I get the job, or what if I don't get the job? And like, I'm still studying. Anyway, I applied, and there were 3 rounds to the application process. So the first one was CV analysis. And I don't know about you guys. I don't know if you're already starting your CVs, and you guys probably went through this as well, but like I had 20 different versions of my CV, just depending on what I wanted to apply for. And you know what? That's normal. Like, you just have to curate your CV to fit the job that you're applying for. You don't have to put every single skill, every single job you've had. Like, it needs to be fitted to what you're applying for. So maybe the ambassador of Brazil didn't want to know that I worked at, I don't know, coffee shop when I was 12. You know, he doesn't have to know that, so you don't have to put that in there. But if there is a skill that you learned at a coffee shop that would, you know, look good in your CV, then go ahead and put it in. It's fine. So yeah, I had 20 different formats of my CV, and I applied. And it was coming up to the end of my masters. We went on a trip to Geneva, and I completely forgot about my application because, you know, university life and stuff. Masters are doing a lot. And while I was in Geneva, the last day of the trip, I went on the portal and I looked up to see if the results had come out, if I had been chosen as one of the applicants to go to the second rounds, which would be exams, tests. And I was chosen, and the exam was the next day, and I was in Geneva, and I was like, right, I need to get on a plane right now. This is probably like the only opportunity I'm ever going to have. So I said to myself, if the flight is less than £100, I will buy it and I'll go. And it was £99. I'll never forget that. EasyJet. And yeah, I went, did the exam. It was a translation exam, so unofficial translation from English to Portuguese, and it was a critical critical thinking exam as well. You read an article and you kind of summarize the article and get the most important pieces of that article to then pass it on to the ambassador. And then forgot about that as well, and then a month later I heard that I had been chosen for interviews, in-person interviews, and I went. It was me and 2 other people. Oh, by the way, when I went to do the exam, I was like the youngest person in the room, so I was like, I'm not going to get this job. I'm like 20-something compared to all these people who are like 40-something, who probably have much more experience than me. But for some reason, yeah, it went well, and then got through to the final rounds of the interviews, and it went really well. I met the ambassador, and we kind of hit it off straight away. And yeah, the next day I got an offer for 2 sectors. One was the agricultural sector of the embassy, and the other one was a position for executive assistant for the ambassador at the representation for international organisations in London. And I accepted the job. Again, my experience was I always knew that I wanted to work at the embassy, so I wasn't looking at other jobs specifically. But I know that's not the reality. A lot of people are like you said, you have a spreadsheet and like you're kind of tracking where you are. And if you are looking to apply for embassy work, you won't find that on LinkedIn. And that's one of the questions that I had like when I was at uni. I was like, how do I even apply to work in an embassy? And if you want to work as like a local worker, so let's say you're here in London and you don't want to go through like your government's process of applying to an embassy, you can work as a local employee. You just have to apply directly through the embassy. So embassy websites will have like a career page, and yeah, just keep looking because there's always an opportunity for something.
Thanks, guys. I mean, I jot down, and there is some common trends here. But I think one of the key things here is that keep yourself visible. I think visibility matters a lot. Now, what does that mean? It could be that, you know, we had just now in a different module, I had an external coming and speaking to our students about a particular topic, etc. Then we had a few students who went up to her afterwards to ask a question, say, oh, by the way, this is me, I have a question, this is my objectives to work with you know, in a particular role in an organization like this perhaps. Now that little sort of interaction is visibility, because that person is going to go back to their organization. And I know this is not easy for everyone. I mean, like, some people are more shy, etc. But like, push yourself a little bit, because people do remember. The same person yesterday told me that we are open to, you know, internships. Sometimes they may not be advertised. In most cases, internships are not even advertised. So you might go on a website, But you can actually contact organizations and set, not a generic email, but do a bit of research. And say, oh, this is an interesting department within that organization. I would really love to have some work experience there. Email them and say, here I am. This is one of my many versions of CV. Just in case you ever need an intern for a few months, I'm available. They may not need someone immediately there and then, but 2 months down the line, something comes up and they're like, oh, I need someone for 3 months to work on a report, and they remember you. So that visibility is quite important, and there are different ways that you can do it. So do keep an active profile. I mean, similar to Samira, I got my first job because I organized a conference at my university, SOAS, and then someone noticed it, and they came and said, oh, do you want to work with us? So it goes a long way. What would you advise in terms of students today, if they want to go about looking for jobs? Where to begin? Are there places that you really sort of recommend? Was there something which was particularly useful to you? Whether it's a platform, whether it's an approach, whether it's LinkedIn, talk us through it.
Do you know what? My only piece of advice is to stay resilient. I stay resilient. The job market right now is hard. We know, and we completely understand. LinkedIn is going to be your best friend, I would say personally, as someone that applies for a lot of jobs through LinkedIn. I also think looking at an industry, most industries will have specific job boards, so if you could be a bit creative with kind of the job boards that you're looking at. So for insurance, for example, we have quite a few job boards, so we have something called Insurance Cultural Awareness Network. They have a job board that is focused towards kind of fame, so that's really helpful for candidates who want to get into the industry. We have something called the London Market Group, who are really focused on early careers. So it's about being creative and doing your research and figuring out the best avenues to get in. I would also say kind of with the process and looking for job opportunities, things like career fairs, insight days, virtual sessions, things like that are really helpful. But yeah, my top piece of advice is stay resilient and kind of look at entry-level jobs as well. Don't just look at things like graduate schemes and keep yourself busy, whether it's volunteering or a part-time job or something like that. It's only going to help you build your skills, and I think that that's really important when you're applying for roles as well.
I was just going to say, I think a common thing between us is you also kind of have to make your own opportunities within whatever it is that you're doing. While I studied at Westminster, I had a part-time job at a college, and I saw a gap that the college didn't have a Model United Nations program for the students, and a lot of students wanted to get into international relations and politics and all those subjects at university, and I thought to myself, I did Model United Nations a lot when I went to school, and it helped me get my position at my master's at work and everything. So I offered to the principal, should we start a Model United Nations course, and it became a really big thing, really successful. But it took me, taking the initiative and creating that and kind of taking some of my time off to structure that program without expecting anything in return, and it kind of worked out. It's something I can put on my CV today. Yes, resilience, but also look at opportunities that you can do yourself. Like I said, don't rely only on having to work for someone else. I think nowadays it's never been easier to work for yourself as well, in whatever capacity that may be, and whatever field that is. I think there's opportunities to begin as freelance and then kind of work your way inwards, or the other way around. You can start somewhere, gain the experience, gain the knowledge, and then go work for yourself. Which we were talking about this, I think is something that a lot of people think about after they've joined the corporate world and see if that is what it fits for them. I think that's what I can say. There's a lot of platforms, job platforms, but I wouldn't necessarily just rely on them. Go on the websites, go on their careers pages, read about the company. Don't just apply for the job because it says there's a title that matches what you're looking for. Read about the company and see if the company is a fit and a match for what you're looking to do for the rest of your life.
I think also when you're talking about LinkedIn, it's not just looking at jobs that are on LinkedIn. You need to know how to network within LinkedIn. So when you apply for a job, you should see who the hiring manager is. You should approach them if you can, message them. Just a small, don't do anything overbearing or anything like that. But a small message, so showing your interest, because that not only shows that you just applied to the job, but it shows that you have that interest, you have that passion, you really do want to work here, you've researched the company, you've researched the role, and that will make you stand out. You need to stand out and stay relevant. And I think Sarah mentioned that as well, like just stay relevant within your work. When you're not even finding a job, for example, that period, there will be a lot of employers that ask you, so what did you do? For us, it was like during COVID, like, what were you doing? I can't just say I was making like pancakes and like, drinking ice lattes. Like I have to, you know, I was volunteering, I was doing other things. Like I had to keep active, even if it was like I went to a workshop or I participated in something that the university was doing. Just find little loopholes and market yourself well. I think that's really, really important. When you are looking at all of these sort of like websites and things like that. But yeah, within LinkedIn, that's just specifically, I thought that's how you should probably work through it.
Yeah, I think taking initiative is a really good idea. I've spoken about a few job boards for more permanent jobs, but I think what's probably a bit more useful for right now, I got my first internship. I worked for my local MP when I was in second year, and I got that through going out campaigning on the doorstep with her, and I asked her a question. And so I was a member of the Labour Party at the time, for my sins. And I got on the mailing list, and they said that there was a campaigning event, and you can go and turn up, knock on some doors. It's quite fun. So I went along, the MP was there, and I asked her for a job, and that was it. And I got one. I also worked as a legal aid assistant at a legal aid clinic at North Kensington Law Centre. And so legal aid clinics, small charities like that are always looking for volunteers. They are desperate for cash, desperate for people to come and help out, and so would love for you to help out. I think it's an incredible place to get some really good experience while also helping out in the community, like you were talking about. LinkedIn is a horrible cesspool, but you've got to do it like right. It's an awful place, but it is really important. I think being visible on there, having at least a profile that people can see when you apply for a job. So if you apply for a job and you don't have a profile on LinkedIn, that is seen as quite a negative. I'm sure you work in recruitment, and I'm sure you know that. So yeah, just you don't need to be posting, you don't need to be kind of messaging people all the time and doing that sort of stuff. If you are going to message people, kind of give them some value or ask them a good question, or don't just say, "Can I have a chat?" because they'll probably ignore you. But yeah, I guess take initiative, try and do your own projects, develop some skills, get good at something, be able to provide value to someone, and then you'll have jobs come out of yours.
Thank you. And I guess one of the things about approaching, because that takes a little bit of, confidence, effort, emotions, etc., to call, what's the right word, to kind of reach out to people that you don't necessarily have a connection with, and essentially be asking them for experience. So it takes a bit, but then do it, because otherwise you wouldn't know. If the person doesn't reply back, it's okay. Nothing is going to change. You've just spent like 5 minutes drafting an email to them, or 1 hour thinking through it. But if 1 out of 15 people does come back and gives you an opportunity to have a work experience over the summer, then that's great. LinkedIn, good point with everyone. We may not like it, but it's the reality of today. To have a good profile, but also to use the platform to reach the right opportunities. And I think in this module you're going to have a session on that, like how to make the most out of LinkedIn during the next couple of years. So do engage with it, because it's not just about having a profile. It has so many tools to make you visible and also to teach you how to reach the kind of industries that you like. Maybe a final question, and then we open it up for some questions from the floor. Anything in particular on your CV which stood out, you feel, and helped you in getting the job that you have right now, or one of the jobs that you have? Was there something specific that you think that the employer or the employers liked? Yeah?
For me, 100% the UN internship. I think that, unfortunately, we live in quite an elitist world, and where things like the UN or Cambridge or whatever it is on the CV is kind of a sign of legitimacy, and whether I necessarily got better skills there than anywhere else, whether that's the case or not, I'm not sure, but people look at that as a sign of kind of authority. And so I think strategically, yes, develop skills in places where you can actually improve, but also getting those things on the CV that you can kind of point to and say, like, I'm capable of doing this job because of this, because of X. You can kind of reap some of that capital from the thing that you put on your CV. And I think that's really useful. And so definitely, if you can try and network and get some really good opportunities with some quite big names. I imagine people working recruitment on the panel, they say when they see certain things on CVs that they're impressed by those. But yeah, as I was talking about before with narrative, if you do have a coffee shop job that you worked in when you were 12, and there are transferable skills that you can bring from that, you worked with customers, you developed a certain manner, you understand small businesses, whatever it happens to be, you can rely on those experiences. I'm going into law, and so I think that that's something in law which is particularly valuable. They say that kind of the opposite of the advice that I just gave. If you have something that sounds good on paper, but you can't actually give any sort of evidence that you had any impact on that role, that's going to be valued less than a role which might seem smaller, it might seem less important in the grand scheme of things, but you've actually had a really important impact. And so I suppose, yeah, those two pieces of advice kind of contradict each other, but I hope that was somewhat useful.
I think for me, after I got the job, I went up to the diplomat who hired me and I asked him, why was I picked for the role, because like I said, there were so many older people in the room and I really thought I was underqualified, but the fact that I had a master's in diplomacy really stood out for them. So they did say, you have the academic knowledge, you know how international organisations work, and you can show that you've been to international organisations, you've taken part, so like my extracurricular activities have been to the UN and I've taken part in meetings and I know kind of the etiquette and what goes on in those meetings, so I could show to them that if I needed to be there and represent and help and be that support system, I could know what was already going on, where a lot of people that were applying for jobs, didn't really know what international organisations were, what they did. They just have experience as assistants in the past, but not necessarily in the field of diplomacy. So for my career specifically, I think having a master's I know for a fact that it did help me a lot. But there were other skills like time management, diary management, which is something I did while I worked at college as well. As an assistant, you need to have good time management. You need to know how to write really good documents and note-verbales, which are the official line of communication between embassies. They are official written letters that we send out. So you need to have good writing skills, and that's exactly what you're doing right now by writing these assignments, which I know sometimes people are saying how am I going to write 5,000 words on this, and that? It's so good to have those skills being taught now. Because when you get into a job, someone tells you you can write a 2,000-word report to send out to the embassy of Pakistan. Yeah, I do that. That's fine.
I think what really helped me was having early on leadership skills. So I was a trustee for the university, so through the union of students. I was elected to be the welfare officer, and I was 21 to 22. So being a trustee at 22 years old, obviously that stands out. I think also having experience internationally, so during university with working cultures, actually I went to Hong Kong with Hayden and David, and that was a really good experience, and that was something that I applied for in my first year of uni. So they like to see that you've experienced different cultures, some jobs would like to see that. I went to Vietnam as well during my second year, I think, at university, and that was through a module. And there's still got a lot of travelling opportunities within uni, so take that, please, because you won't, when you step out into the real world, you might not get that opportunity, you might not get support for going to these things. I remember our module would support us a lot, financially I'm talking about as well, so don't ever think that, this is too far beyond my reach. Speak to your tutors, they can help you if you want to do something and want to go on an international trip, speak to somebody. Don't limit yourself, I think, I did a lot of advocacy work, which kind of put me into a great stepping stone into where I am now. And then I showed passion that I actually do enjoy it, and I think that's what's really important. You need to take that passion and show what are you, like, the fruitfulness of that. So yeah, that's a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, I feel like I'm about to bring some of your day. We don't look at CVs at my company. So for early careers, it's all about, for us, creating fair opportunities for everybody, and we know that not everyone has the same access to opportunities that others do. So we don't actually look at CVs. It's very much about how you perform in your assessments, and tests and stuff like that. At the time when I applied, my CV was looked at. And I think the biggest thing for me, because other companies do look at CVs, we're just different in that way, but the biggest thing for me was that I was keeping myself busy. And if I had a break, I was doing stuff in that. So I cited that I was a rep at the uni, I cited that I did my other jobs, I was a waitress, I was a bartender, I worked in retail, but all of them, I was looking at job applications and then I was looking at the transferable skills I had from all of my careers and saying how can I fit that into what they're looking for. Obviously the travel opportunities, I went to Vietnam, Turkey and Geneva with the uni, and those were really big things. So I was going to international conferences, I was representing our uni in different environments, and it was showing that you're adaptable. So it's about, I'm not going to say lie, and I'm not going to say use AI for CV, that's the worst thing you could do right now as someone in the job market. What I would say is think about your experiences and how you can make them fit the job and the culture of the company that you're looking to go into. Everything you do has an impact, whether it's, I mean, facts and figures are great. Figures are really good, but I would say figure out how you can fit that into what the company's looking for, regardless of what you've done, whether it's volunteering or whether it's kind of doing your own research or the projects you've done or the kind of things that you're just interested in. They all can fit into a career and they can all have an impact on how you fit in that job as well. So I would say think about that and be a little bit creative with how you're representing yourself on your CV.
Thank you. And one difference between the guys sitting up here and you guys is that we have a lot more opportunities for doing this stuff every year, because we kind of speak to people like yourself, we see what has worked, what hasn't worked, and we offer more. So for example, before, I mean now travel that you were mentioning, I just realized at the beginning that I've been on a foreign trip with all these guys in the past in different countries. We do a lot more of that, the lessons, the working cultures, modules offer that, etc. Do engage with them. LinkedIn, so now you're going to have a session, whereas you guys probably didn't have a session on how to make the most out of LinkedIn in your modules. With the UN internships, Kian was one of the first cohorts going out to the UN, so that was the beginning of the program, and now it's 5 years down the line. So we have information sessions here. This year we're adding also on the 6th, when we have the information session, in the morning the director of UN Migration Agency's Human Resource Management is flying down from Geneva to offer a 3-hour session about how to prepare for interviews at the UN and international organizations. And we are the second university in the UK that we get this. So engage with these sort of things, because those are the things that kind of make a big difference. All right, we're going to go into questions. So you can raise your hand and ask questions. One thing I wanted to also mention that I think you will be sent a feedback form. Oh, they're all here. Oh, you have it. Whenever you have time, complete them. There's a chance to win a £20 Amazon voucher as well, if you're filling this out. Let's take questions. Raise your hands, and then if it's addressed to a particular person, you can mention that. Otherwise, someone from the panel will respond.
That's fine.
And maybe you can mention what you're studying as well.
So I study politics. My question is kind of all of you was kind of, okay, I know you understand the job market and how competitive it is. I can imagine it's very easy to compare yourself to others and feel behind. Is there a time where any of you guys have kind of looked around to others at uni or in your jobs and been like, oh, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that? Is that something I should be doing? Is there a time you guys have felt really stuck or behind in comparison to other people?
Maybe let's take one more question, and then... Are we thinking? Okay, we're thinking about that. Let's just... And by the way, if you want to send your question in writing, you can also use that QR code.
Yeah, the answer is yes. As I said at the beginning, I was in competition with everyone, not just my year looking for jobs, but also the year below me. Actually starting my career was really hard. I had terrible imposter syndrome, and so that is when you feel like you don't belong there and someone's going to find out and they're going to fire you because you're terrible at what you're meant to be doing. I had a really bad imposter syndrome when I started. Like I said, there weren't many people that looked like me in my company, and also there weren't many people from my background, and I really struggled with that. And what I didn't do was talk to people, because I thought if they found out, they're going to fire me, and they're not going to help me, they're just going to tell me to leave. And I think once I actually started talking to people, including like my manager and some really senior people at our company, I realised that everyone goes through it, and some people are still going through it at very senior positions. And I think the best thing you can do at any job is communicate and build your network. The more people you know is only going to help you in your job search and all of these great times about finding opportunities, but also it gives you a support network of people you can talk to, understand their experiences and figure out how your own are also related to them. I would say that comparing yourself is genuinely a thief of joy, especially in my company. I started on a cohort with about 30 other graduates, and I consistently felt like I was behind them, I didn't belong there, and it is so hard and it's so difficult to consistently compare yourself. And I was always told I need to stop because it's such a bad habit. Even on this panel, I can feel like I'm behind or I'm ahead or whatever, but it's all relative to your journey and what you want to do. And again, moving around in a linear manner really helps me, but it's something that you have to constantly teach yourself and navigate. That comparison is not helpful, and the competition element is kind of, I think, beat into you because we're not naive to the world and what it looks like in the job market, but comparing yourself isn't helpful, but understanding and learning from people's experiences rather than saying they're doing better than me or they're doing worse than me is more helpful than anything. So yeah, it happens to everyone, including very senior people, so I wouldn't worry about it too much, but I completely understand.
One of the kind of points and messages that I wanted to bring in today, and it was so interesting when I was approached, I was here last year doing the same panel, and I was approached this year as well to do it, and they asked me if I wanted to do it, and I said, well, I just had my second baby and I'm no longer working at the embassy, I took some time off. And they said, no, that's fine, I still want to, hear about your experience, and that just proved to me that there is no right or wrong way to do things, and sometimes we think that our career is going to be linear and growing, and once you get into whatever it is that you want to do, you kind of have to keep going and you can't stop, but that's not the reality of life. At some point in the stage of my career, I decided I wanted to have kids, and that's the reality for me now. And the question that I get the most is, but are you going to go back to your job? Like, that was the dream job. Like, when I got pregnant, so many people were like, but you're leaving your job? What's going to happen? Don't be afraid to change your mind. And don't be afraid to realise, you know what, maybe this isn't where I want to be right now in my career, and you can change that. And that's so good that we have that flexibility, that we're not stuck to something for the rest of our lives. You can change and you can adapt. So don't feel pressured if you're behind, what time you started uni, what time you're graduating, if you want to take a gap year after you finish this, go for it. Like, if you need some time to kind of work on yourself and see what it is that you actually want to do, that's fine. There's no rush in anything, and the job opportunities will be there when you come back. There will be something for you to do when you're ready to do it. You don't need to compare yourself.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I have that feeling all the time. Am I behind? Am I ahead? And you know what I really realise is I can't compare myself to these people on the panel right now, because we all had different experiences. We all grew up differently. We've had different opportunities. They haven't gone through what I've gone through, and I haven't gone through what they've gone through. So comparison is just, it doesn't make sense in those types of situations, and that's what you've got to consistently remind yourself, is that you're on your own journey, on your own path. If you keep looking back at others and trying to compare yourself, you're holding yourself back from doing something that you from achieving something amazing, basically. I know it sounds cheesy, but that really is what it is about. Because, for example, if I said, oh, this person is in that senior position, can't believe how they, if I kept consistently thinking about how did they get there, I'm so behind, it's not helping me. I'm not going anywhere thinking about that. And it is normal, because, like I said, I still do have those moments, and I think that's just, social media, wherever you're at, not just in your career, I think in life, we just have, we're human beings, we're going to inevitably compare ourselves. But just always remember that that person hasn't been through what you've been through, you haven't been through what they've been through, so you're on your own journey. And carry on that journey and just do your best. Whatever you can do that.
I don't think I'm the best person to ask. I do this all the time. I started uni in 2020, and kind of internalised this idea after my first year because it was all online, that I was behind, that I needed to catch up. And it took a long time to kind of detrain myself from thinking that. I'm still kind of working on it now. But I think two of the things that helped, firstly, the pace of change and of career progression does slow down a little bit after you graduate. I think when you're at uni, you've got all this time when you're not studying to be getting internships, to be doing this, to be doing that, to be kind of making change all the time. And then once you get into a role, it stops, it slows down, and you have all that time to kind of build your skills and focus on that one specific thing, which is really helpful. And then secondly, for me, there's kind of a built-in bottleneck in the field that I've chosen to go into, where you aren't expected to get to the bar immediately. I think there's a general expectation that you slow down, you build your skills, you build your profile, you have experiences across different areas before you then kind of get to where you want to be. And I think you can apply that to whatever field that you want to go into. So you can say, in 5 years or in 10 years or wherever in the future, I want to be in this role. What can I do now to build the skills, to build the experience, to ultimately get there and work backwards from there?
Questions? Don't be shy. Yeah. One and then two.
Hello guys, first of all, congratulations for what you've achieved so far after your studies. I'm William, level 5 student in International Relations and Development. So my question is very simple. So I just wanted to find out, or just wondering, how did you guys prepare for your interviews? And what are some of the questions you got asked at the interview, if you can remember? Thank you.
My name is Natalie. I'm studying international relations. I have a specific question for Juliana and her work at the embassy. So I didn't know that you can apply your work maybe for internships and stuff at embassies even if you're not a citizen. So thank you for that. And I was wondering, do you know maybe which language level do you need to be comfortable in the working experience, even if it's not your native language or the language that you're currently studying in? Maybe you have some insight in that.
Any more questions? We have one online as well, so I'll mention it and then maybe different people can take the different questions. So something about how to prepare for interviews, this one specifically for languages and embassies. And then a question online, it's about the freelance working, that I think everyone said, try and find something for yourself actually to do. Someone has asked, can someone do that while, how can you do it while that freelance work is still relevant to what you're studying in your IR courses, for example? So how can you carve out some freelance experience? Who wants to go? And can we do that 1 minute answer so that we can
I can start with take that question. Yes, thank you for your question. So you can get jobs at various embassies. Obviously, each embassy will have their own way of working. Not every single embassy will hire people from other nationalities. I know the Brazilian embassy does. In terms of language, you do need to have a professional level of that specific language. So, for example, Portuguese, not native, but maybe a level below that. You need to be able to translate documents quite quickly. You need to be able to kind of read and understand what you're reading quite quickly. So if you're at the stage where you can speak it but you can't read, I'd say no, maybe try to get more fluent to that. And if that's something you want to do, go for it, work and improve your skill levels, and that way you can get that job. But yeah, it needs to be kind of professional level. And in terms of questions I was asked at my interview, they were all questions relating to international organisations and bodies within London. So London has a few international organisations that are based here in London. The International Maritime Organisation, I don't know if anyone's ever walked past it. It's a huge building, very beautiful inside. And the ambassador just wanted to know questions about if I knew about these organisations, what they did, what they represented, kind of what projects Brazil was bringing to the table. So I really had to do some research and background checks. Not all of the information that I was asked was on the embassy's website. I really had to dig deep and look at articles. Yeah, kind of every link. I had 20 different million tabs open, so yeah, do some research. Go for it.
Just to give you some hope, when you are obviously in a professional setting, that language thing, that is important. However, if you're going for like work experience and things like that, they don't always look at the language. Like for example, when I was working at the Afghan embassy, I did not know how to speak, I only speak English, so, but that, you know, it's fun because you're working with, there was like another expat that I was working with as well, so that gave me a bit of insight how they work and things like that. Obviously it makes your job a lot easier and you do stand out if you can speak their language, but yeah, you just apply it anyway.
In terms of interview skills, you have to get comfortable with selling yourself. That is going to be my main kind of thing. And also, you have to be yourself. So we look at video interviews and we look at hundreds. And if you are just the same person reading off ChatGPT, we are not going to put you through to our final interview stage and in front of our business as someone that would be a good cultural fit for us. It's also thinking about your motivation. You also are having the opportunity to interview the company that you might work for 5 to 10 years or even longer. It's about bringing yourself to the interview, but also understanding your motivations, and then look at, my recommendation is always look at the company values. Most of the interview questions are going to align with that, or the job description. So both usually, we go on more of like a strengths base, so we look at what you would do rather than what you have done. So I would say kind of look at the values and then where you have demonstrated the values in the past, or where you think you can demonstrate those values in the future. So different situational kind of context, I think, is a really good way to kind of train yourself on that. But you have to get comfortable with talking about yourself and selling yourself. Also, you have to get comfortable with video interviews. And I know people hate it, but it's going to be a stage for a lot of graduate schemes. It's going to be a stage for a lot of entry-level jobs. You have to get comfortable in front of the camera and doing a self-recorded video interview, because your body language is really important. How you come across to people is really important, and that's something that we look out for as well. So those are kind of the top tips for interview.
Yeah, I think for interviews, you should definitely go to this event on the 6th. Yeah, the 6th. I went to a similar one when I was here, and it was really useful. A lot of UN and kind of public sector type jobs do competency-based interviews now, which is quite different from a traditional interview. And so a traditional interview, you'll sit down and kind of get a feel for the other person, and it'll be more of a chat, whereas these interviews are kind of these slightly weird scenarios that they kind of build up. It doesn't feel like a real conversation, but what you have to do is structure your answers in a certain way. So they'll ask you a question like, tell us about a time where you have demonstrated teamwork or a specific skill, or yeah, they'll present a scenario to you. So they'll say, you are in this scenario at work, these X, Y, Z happens, what do you do? And you have to respond with the STAR technique, which is situation, task, action, response. And you'll find yourself not talking like a human, but it's really, really useful because it shows that you can kind of articulate your thoughts in a certain way, that you can show the process of what you've done in the past, and then you can also show what you would bring to them. I think practice those types of interview questions, have like flashcards of potential questions that might come up, and have a sort of bank of anecdotes that you can draw on. So if you have 15 experiences that you've done before, and you can apply those to different questions that come up about similar things, and then you know exactly what your star is going to be for each answer. That's really useful. I do my IOM internship, I have like post-it notes all over the wall and stuff like that, and I think that's allowed as long as you're not sort of reading off them. And so yeah, I would just practice, drill that time and time again before you go into the interviews, because it isn't a real conversation. And if you go in there thinking that it's a normal interview, you just pass.
Can I just answer about the freelance work? I don't think we've touched on that, because we mentioned a bit about freelance. With freelance work, I think it's mainly finding a gap within the market that you want to work in, whether that's the field that you're studying or not. Even if someone has already tried to fill that gap and you think that you can do it better, like do it. Imagine if your local burger shop didn't open because they had to compete with McDonald's. Do you know what I mean? Like they saw a gap within the market of something that McDonald's wasn't doing, and they think they can do better, and that's why they opened their burger shop. So I think that would apply the same to whatever it is that you want to do in your career. If you see a gap in the market, whether that's international relations, politics, policy, whatever it is, and you want to work for yourself, just try to find that gap and fill it the best you can. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
all of us. Sorry.
We're all failed on that account. No, thank you. This was really helpful.
Kian did read my mind. As you guys were talking, I kind of looked up a star, and then suddenly Kian started talking about it. It was a bit weird. So in fact, that 6th November event in the morning, where that UN guy is coming, it's about competency-based interviews. That's the title of the session, how to prepare for competency-based interviews. And it's not just at the UN anymore. As you said, like at a lot of public sector organizations, NGOs, etc. Now, and that type of interview is preparation is a little bit different. The techniques, the STAR technique that you mentioned, they're really helpful to help with a lot of other questions. So, you know, how to answer. I remember he was saying that sometimes you ask someone, you know, have you done this thing before? Tell us about a situation. And they're like, yeah, we worked at a particular organization between this year and that year. That's it. Without actually saying that, you know, what was my role? What did I achieve there? And did that make a difference? So that sort of makes a difference to know about these types of, you know, answers and questions and be prepared for them. Any other questions from the floor? So we have one more question on the board. Have any of you seen any success stories with students who struggled with mobility? And do you have any advice? Anyone? Not everyone has to answer, so you can pick anyone who wants to come in. Yeah. I guess we can talk about both social or physical mobility.
I'll start with physical just because I think that there is consensus among every company, regardless of the size, is that every company will adjust to who you are if you're a strong candidate. We ask from the get-go in our application process if you need any reasonable adjustments, whether it's physically or you're neurodiverse or anything like that, because the world is changing, the kind of candidates that we're getting through are changing, and those reasonable adjustments, if you are successful, will carry out into your company. So just because we give you reasonable adjustments in your interview stage, that will be reflected if you are successful at the job as well, and that is an ongoing discussion. Every company, regardless of the size, will have a ways to work, and they will have an employee relations team that focus on kind of the physical mobility, either neurodiversity or anything like that. It's a very big topic right now. In terms of social mobility, again, it's a really big thing right now, especially in corporate. It's a very big trending topic right now on how we can get people from more diverse backgrounds. And we're not just talking about kind of BAME or females or anything like that, it is about social mobility and how we can give people access that previously haven't had access to the careers that are available just because their dad doesn't work in insurance or their mum doesn't work in investment banking or something like that. It's about creating fair opportunities also. Social mobility is a very big topic right now in the industry, especially in the insurance industry. And I think people are very nervous, especially me coming from kind of that lower socioeconomic kind of background. For me, I was very nervous about fitting in the corporate world where everybody comes from that kind of higher end of the socioeconomic status. And it's about figuring out where you fit in and bringing your whole self to work, regardless of that. Because the more diverse perspective the company has, the more that they can improve and cater to everybody. So I would say in both regards, it will be fine and you'll be comfortable at most companies.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So, final words, and now I'm going to make it more difficult.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Oh, please.
Because I always tell students, I always say to them, to identify a career, okay, to identify a career where they're going to utilize their strengths, what comes naturally to us, because skills we can learn, and our values. So in your positions, how much do you think that you're utilizing your strengths and your values, or perhaps you weren't, and that led to kind of dissatisfaction to think about another type of career? Thank you.
30 seconds.
Yes, just quickly.
I don't know if I can do this in 30 seconds. I guess when I was at Iowa, it was an incredible experience, and I'm incredibly grateful to have had that experience. But it didn't align with my values. I didn't think that what they were doing was meeting the standards that you would expect to set for an organisation at times. I thought that there was a lot of waste. I wasn't sure that it was the best way to do development. And I picked something else, and I think that you have this idea of the UN or whatever it is being what you're destined to be, and you have to kind of reach those heights and be in those incredible organisations that everyone reveres, and I think just choose your own path. If that doesn't work for you, pick something else.
Yeah, I think I'm a massive advocate for this, that wake up in the morning and do something that you love and that you're passionate about, because it will get to you. I think, I've worked in, like I said, central government, local government, student, in universities, like different areas, and in every corner of that, I wasn't 100% passionate about, I had passion, but it wasn't loving every, part of my work. So, I think, like I said, I kind of moved into finding my passion, and that's what you have to do. You don't have to stay in something that you hate. Yes, you might have a situation which means you have to have a job and whatever, but don't think that this is a be all and end all where you are.
Yeah, so I moved from a project manager role into my early career role, and the reason I did that was because I wasn't passionate about being a project manager. I wasn't passionate about the work that I was doing at the time. It's very important. It wasn't something I was passionate about. And the reason I went into early careers is because I wanted to see more people that look like me in the industry. And I wanted to create that experience that insurance is a variety of roles out there that people can get into. So yeah, I would say just find something that does align with your values, because it sounds dramatic, but soul destroying to do something that you don't care about every day, and you want to wake up and be excited about your role.
I can say that I had my dream role. It was the first job I applied to after leaving my masters, and it was everything that I wanted. The whole experience of working at the embassy was, incredible. I learned a lot, but I reached a point in my career where I looked at it and I was seeking something else, which is what I'm doing now. And it kind of, it's okay to change, like I said before, it's okay to change. You don't have to just work a corporate ladder, you don't have to stay in the same job forever, and your strengths and weaknesses will change throughout your time. Don't be afraid of change, and don't stay somewhere where you're not passionate.
Thank you so much. This was really helpful, and thank you for addressing all the questions which were put to you. If in a few words, your final line of advice to students, if it's one thing, I'm going to reduce it to one sentence almost. One piece of advice, quickly, 10 seconds, and then we wrap it up.
Be seen, be visible, sit at the front of the room, make people remember you, even if it's just your name and something interesting about you. I'm sure we all here have professors who remember us and know our names, and that's why we're here, that's why we were picked to come here. But it makes a difference, so be seen. I know sometimes it's difficult, you're shy and scared of people coming up to you and speaking to people, but don't, be visible.
Build your network and do your research into the companies you're applying for. We don't like people that are unprepared, and it shows when you are unprepared.
Stand your ground, don't forget your morals, don't forget your passion, don't forget the reason why you've applied for something, don't forget the reason why you study politics and IR. I would just say follow your passion. I know that's so cringy, but yes.
Just if you don't know what you want to do, pick something, get really good at it, and